This is a story about what happens when talent gets underestimated. It's about a brilliant programmer, a tech giant blindsided by its own arrogance, and a reckoning that shook an entire industry. While the companies and people are fictional, the themes of bias and underrepresentation are very real. Especially for Black women in the tech world, our story begins in a cold, sterile, glass-walled interview room. On one side of the table sits Amara Vance, a programmer with a mind so sharp it could cut diamonds. On the other is Mark Renshaw, a senior director at a company we'll call Omnicorp. He wears his title like a crown and looks at Amara like she's just another peasant at the castle gates. The job is for a junior security analyst, a role she is wildly overqualified for. But in an industry where Black women are significantly underrepresented, Amara knows you have to start somewhere, even if that means the bottom of a ladder she could have built herself. Mark doesn't so much read her resume as glance at it, his finger tracing the name of her respected, but not Ivy League, university. A tight little smirk plays on his lips. "Look, your portfolio is fine," he says, letting the word land like an insult, but Omnicorp isn't just a company. It's a paradigm. We're looking for digital natives, people with a certain pedigree, someone who fits the culture seamlessly. He leans in, his voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. "We need people who can hit the ground running, not those who might need extensive mentorship." The implication was as clear as it was ugly. Her race, her gender, her non-elite education, it all added up to no in his biased math. It's a story that plays out in offices everywhere, where cultural bias and systemic barriers challenge the careers of women and ethnic minorities. He slides her resume back across the table. "We'll keep your information on file," he says. "The universal corporate code for get lost." Amara walks out of the Omnicorp tower feeling the sting of humiliation. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the casual, dismissive arrogance behind it. Mark hadn't seen a brilliant programmer. He'd seen a diversity box he didn't feel like ticking. That night, fueled by a mix of fury and pure intellectual curiosity, Amara sits down at her computer. She isn't looking for a job anymore. She's looking for a weakness. Omnicorp single quotes S crown jewel is Nexus, a social integration platform embedded in almost every major app. It manages user data, logins, and payments. It's the digital backbone of modern life and Omnicorp's golden goose. To the world, Nexus is a fortress. To Amara, it's a challenge. For 3 days, she does nothing but code, eat, and sleep. She probes the Nexus API, reverse engineers its data packets, and scours its architecture. At first, she finds nothing but textbook perfect defenses. But Amara isn't looking at the front door. She's examining the foundation. Even the strongest castle can fall if its design is flawed. Then, on the fourth night, at 3:17 a.m., she finds it. It's not a simple bug. It's a flaw at the very core of Nexus, a catastrophic vulnerability in its user authentication protocol. A single elegant exploit that could grant access to every single user's data across every platform using Nexus. It is a digital doomsday device. And Omnicorp, in all its swaggering confidence, has no idea it's there. Her first instinct, the good programmer's instinct, is to report it anonymously. Be the hero. Save them from their own hubris. But then Mark Renshaw's smug face flashes in her mind. Asterisk. A certain pedigree. They wouldn't believe her. They dismissed the warning just as they dismissed her. In an industry where 7 in 10 women feel they have to work harder just to prove their worth, Amara decides she's done trying to prove herself to them. Her brilliance wasn't a gift for them to accept or reject. It was a weapon, and she was finally ready to use it. CTA, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had a moment where you were completely underestimated? What did you do? And while Amara's decision wasn't about malice, it was about creation. She wasn't going to tear down their empire out of spite. She was going to build a better one on principle. She called it Aegis. In mythology, the impenetrable shield of the gods. For the next 6 months, Aegis became her entire world. She quit her job, burned through her savings, and poured every ounce of her being into its creation. Her apartment vanished under a sea of coffee cups, takeout containers, and whiteboards. Covered in cryptographic equations, she designed a new authentication architecture, one that decentralized trust and eliminated the single point of failure she'd found in Nexus. She made end-to-end encryption a core tenet, not just a feature. And she wrote a privacy policy that was simple, readable, and put the user in complete control. Aegis wasn't just a better product. It was a moral statement against a tech culture that often ignores the needs of its diverse users. Launching Aegis was like whispering in a hurricane. She had no marketing budget and none of the industry connections that are often gatekept from Black professionals. She posted on a few cybersecurity subreddits and wrote a single meticulously detailed blog post. It didn't mention Omnicorp or Nexus by name. It simply laid out a theoretical vulnerability in common, authentication systems, and presented Aegis as the solution. For weeks, crickets. Gout started to creep in, then the whisper was heard. A few influential cybersecurity analysts found her post. They tried to break Aegis and failed. Instead, they found elegance and strength. The whisper grew into a murmur. Small app developers, fed up with Omnicorp's fees, started quietly migrating to Aegis. The tipping point came on a Tuesday. A notorious hacking group announced they had breached a major gaming company, stealing millions of user accounts. At the press conference, a humbled CEO admitted the vulnerability wasn't theirs. It was their third-party authentication service, Omnicorp's Nexus. The hackers had used the exact exploit Amara had found. Suddenly, her blog post wasn't theoretical. It was a prophecy that had just come true. The murmur became a roar. The story was irresistible, while the tech Goliath was exposed as a fragile giant. A mysterious new platform had already built the perfect shield. The exodus was a stampede. Companies dropped Nexus and flocked to Aegis, desperate to regain user trust at Omnicorp. It was a bloodbath. The stock was in freefall. Mark Renshaw and his team were tasked with patching a flaw so deep it would require a full rebuild, a multi-billion-dollar nightmare, all while the mysterious Aegis ate their market share, a constant, humiliating reminder of their failure. It took Omnicorp's board 2 panicked weeks and a team of expensive private investigators to find the ghost who had outsmarted them. They traced the domain for Aegis and landed on a name, Amara Vance, the same woman Mark Renshaw had dismissed. Just 7 months earlier, the call came on a Friday. It wasn't Mark. It was Omnicorp's CEO, a man used to being on magazine covers, now sounding desperate. He wanted to meet, immediately. The meeting was in the same boardroom. But this time, Amara wasn't the one asking for a seat at the table. She was there to watch them grovel. The entire executive board was present. In the corner, pale and shrunken, was Mark Renshaw, refusing to meet her eyes. The CEO made his offer, Chief Technology Officer, a salary that looked like a phone number, a massive equity stake, and, of course, an astronomical sum to acquire Aegis. They wanted her to save them, to buy the very brilliance they'd been too blind to see when it was offered for free. Amara listened, her face unreadable. She let the silence stretch, savoring their discomfort. Finally, her eyes landed on Mark Renshaw. He flinched. "Mr. Renshaw," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Do you remember our conversation in this room?" Mark swallowed hard. Yes. You said you were looking for someone with a certain pedigree," she said, throwing his own words back at him. "You were right to worry about culture. A culture of arrogance that allows a system-ending flaw to go unnoticed. A culture that dismisses talent because it doesn't look like you expect." She turned back to the CEO. "Your offer is impressive," she said with a small, knowing smile. "But I have to decline. You see, I'm building my own company, and we have our own standards. We're looking for partners with a certain ethical pedigree." She stood, her presence filling the room. "And frankly, Omnicorp doesn't fit our culture." The shock was tangible. They thought her goal was money or a job in their club. They couldn't grasp that she wanted to build something on her own terms, founded on respect. The struggle for Black women in STEM is one of resilience against systemic barriers. Amara was done fighting for a seat. She had built a better tabletop. She walked out, leaving the architects of a fallen empire to stare at the ruins. She didn't look back. Conclusion: Omnicorp never recovered. The Nexus breach became a legendary case study in corporate hubris. The company was eventually broken up and sold for parts. A dinosaur fossilized by its own arrogance. Aegis, on the other hand, thrived under Amara's leadership. It became the new industry standard, a titan built on trust. She became one of the most respected figures in tech, not just for her genius, but for her ethics. She championed diversity, creating pipelines for talented people from underrepresented backgrounds, the very people Omnicorp had cast aside. Her success was a powerful reminder that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And sometimes, the most revolutionary act is to stop asking for a chance and simply take it.